Okinawa Prefecture is the southernmost prefecture of Japan. It comprises hundreds of the Ryukyu Islands in a chain over 1,000 kilometers long. The Ryukyus extend southwest from Kyushu to Taiwan. The Okinawa Prefecture encompasses the southern two-thirds of the chain. Naha, Okinawa's capital, is located in the southern part of Okinawa Island. Currently about half of the 53,000 U.S. troops deployed in Japan as part of the post-World War II security arrangement are based in Okinawa. History. The oldest evidence of human existence on the Ryukyu Islands is from the Stone Age and was discovered in Harden. Some human bone fragments from the Paleolithic era were unearthed, but there is no clear evidence of Paleolithic remains. Japanese Jomon influences are dominant on the Okinawa Islands, although clay vessels on the Sakishima Islands have a commonality with those in Taiwan. The first mention of the word Ryukyu was written in the Book of Suai. Okinawa was the Japanese word identifying the islands, first seen in the biography of Jagen, written in 779. Agricultural societies begun in the 8th century slowly developed until the 12th century. Since the islands are located at the eastern perimeter of the East China Sea relatively close to Japan, China and Southeast Asia, the Ryukyu Kingdom became a prosperous trading nation. Also during this period, many gusukis, similar to castles, were constructed. The Ryukyu Kingdom entered into the Imperial Chinese tributary system under the Ming dynasty beginning in the 15th century, which established economic relations between the two nations. In 1609, the Shimazu clan, which controlled the region that is now Kagoshima Prefecture, invaded the Ryukyu Kingdom. The Ryukyu Kingdom was obliged to agree to form a suzerain vassal relationship with the Satsuma and the Tokugawa shogunate, while maintaining its previous role within the Chinese tributary system. Ryukyuan sovereignty was maintained since complete annexation would have created a conflict with China. The Satsuma clan earned considerable profits from trade with China during a period in which foreign trade was heavily restricted by the shogunate. Although Satsuma maintained strong influence over the islands, the Ryukyu Kingdom maintained a considerable degree of domestic political freedom for over 200 years. 4 years after the 1868 Meiji Restoration, the Japanese government, through military incursions, officially annexed the kingdom and renamed it Ryukyuhan. At the time, the Qing Empire asserted a nominal suzerainty over the islands of the Ryukyu Kingdom. Since the Ryukyu Kingdom was also a member state of the Chinese tributary system, Ryukyuhan became Okinawa Prefecture of Japan in 1879, even though all other Hans had become prefectures of Japan in 1872. In 1912, Okinawans first obtained the right to vote for representatives to the National Diet, which had been established in 1890. Near the end of World War II, in 1945, the U.S. Army and Marine Corps invaded Okinawa with 185,000 troops. A third of the civilian population were killed, a quarter of the civilian population were killed during the 1945 Battle of Okinawa alone. The dead, of all nationalities, are commemorated at the cornerstone of peace. After the end of World War II, in 1945, the Ryukyu independence movement developed. While Okinawa was under United States military government of the Ryukyu Islands administration for 27 years. During this trusteeship rule, the United States established numerous military bases on the Ryukyu Islands. During the Korean War, B-29 superfortresses flew bombing missions over Korea from Kadena Air Base on Okinawa. The military build-up on the island during the Cold War increased to division between local inhabitants and the American military. Under the 1952 Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between the United States and Japan, the United States Forces Japan have maintained a large military presence. Since 1960, the U.S. and Japan have maintained an agreement that allows the U.S. to secretly bring nuclear weapons into Japanese ports. The Japanese tended to oppose the introduction of nuclear arms into Japanese territory by the government's assertion of Japan's non-nuclear policy, and a statement of the three non-nuclear principles. Most of the weapons were alleged to be stored in ammunition bunkers at Kadena Air Base. Between 1954 and 1972, 19 different types of nuclear weapons were deployed in Okinawa, but with fewer than around 1,000 warheads at any one time. 1965 to 1972. Between 1965 and 1972, Okinawa was a key staging point for the United States in its military operations directed towards North Vietnam. Along with Guam, it presented a geographically strategic launchpad for covert bombing missions over Cambodia and Laos. Anti-Vietnam War sentiment became linked politically to the movement for reversion of Okinawa to Japan. In 1965, the U.S. military bases, earlier viewed as paternal post-war protection, were increasingly seen as aggressive. The Vietnam War highlighted the differences between the United States and Okinawa, but showed a commonality between the islands and mainland Japan. As controversy grew regarding the alleged placement of nuclear weapons on Okinawa, fears intensified over the escalation of the Vietnam War. Okinawa was then perceived, by some inside Japan, as a potential target for China. Should the communist government feel threatened by the United States, American military secrecy blocked any local reporting on what was actually occurring at bases such as Kadena Air Base. As information leaked out, and images of airstrikes were published, the local population began to fear the potential for retaliation. Political leaders such as Oda Makoto, a major figure in the Bahrain movement, believed that the return of Okinawa to Japan would lead to the removal of U.S. forces, ending Japan's involvement in Vietnam. In a speech delivered in 1967, Oda was critical of Prime Minister Sato's unilateral support of America's war in Vietnam, claiming, "Realistically, we are all guilty of complicity in the Vietnam War." The Bahrain became a more visible anti-war movement on Okinawa as the American involvement in Vietnam intensified. The movement employed tactics ranging from demonstrations to handing leaflets to soldiers, sailors, airmen and marines directly, warning of the implications for a Third World War. The U.S. military bases on Okinawa became a focal point for anti-Vietnam War sentiment. By 1969, over 50,000 American military personnel were stationed on Okinawa, accustomed to privileges and laws not shared by the indigenous population. The United States Department of Defense began referring to Okinawa as the Keystone of the Pacific. This slogan was imprinted on local U.S. military license plates. In 1969, chemical weapons leaked from the U.S. storage depot at Chibana in central Okinawa, under the so-called Operation Red Hat. Evacuations of residents took place over a wide area for 2 months. Even 2 years later, government investigators found that Okinawans and the environment near the leak were still suffering because of the depot. In 1972, the U.S. government handed over the islands to Japanese administration. In a 1981 interview with the Mainichi Shimbun, Edwin O. Ryushu, a former U.S. ambassador to Japan, said that naval ships armed with nuclear weapons stopped at Japanese ports on a routine duty, and this was approved by the Japanese government. The 1995 Okinawa rape incident of a 12-year-old girl by a U.S. serviceman triggered large protests in Okinawa. Reports by the local media of accidents and crimes committed by U.S. servicemen have reduced the local population's support for the U.S. military bases. A strong emotional response has emerged from certain incidents. As a result, the media has drawn renewed interest in the Ryukyu independence movement. Documents declassified in 1997 proved that both tactical and strategic weapons have been maintained in Okinawa. In 1999 and 2002, the Japan Times and the Okinawa Times reported speculation that not all weapons were removed from Okinawa. On October 25, 2005, after a decade of negotiations, the governments of the US and Japan officially agreed to move Marine Corps Air Station Futenma from its location in the densely populated city of Jinan to the more northerly and remote Camp Schwab in Nago by building a heliport with a shorter runway, partly on Camp Schwab land and partly running into the sea. The move is partly an attempt to relieve tensions between the people of Okinawa and the Marine Corps. Okinawa Prefecture constitutes 0.6% of Japan's land surface, yet as of 2006, 75% of all USFJ bases were located on Okinawa, and U.S. military bases occupied 18% of the main island. 2007 present. According to a 2007 Okinawa Times poll, 85% of Okinawans opposed the presence of the U.S. military because of noise pollution from military drills, the risk of aircraft accidents, environmental degradation, and crowding from the number of personnel there. Although 73.4% of Japanese citizens appreciated the mutual security treaty with the U.S. and the presence of the USFJ, in another poll conducted by the Asahi Shimbun in May 2010, 43% of the Okinawan population wanted the complete closure of the U.S. bases, 42% wanted reduction and 11% wanted the maintenance of the status quo. In early 2008, U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice apologized after a series of crimes involving American troops in Japan, including the rape of a young girl of 14 by a Marine on Okinawa. The U.S. military also imposed a temporary 24-hour curfew on military personnel and their families to ease the anger of local residents. Some cited statistics that the crime rate of military personnel is consistently less than that of the general Okinawan population. However, some criticized the statistics as unreliable, since violence against women is underreported. Between 1972 and 2009, U.S. servicemen committed 5,634 criminal offenses, including 25 murders, 385 burglaries, 25 arsons, 127 rapes, 306 assaults and 2,827 thefts. In 2009, a new Japanese government came to power and froze the U.S. forces relocation plan, but in April 2010 indicated their interest in resolving the issue by proposing a modified plan. Okinawan feelings about the U.S. military are complex, and some of the resentment towards the U.S. bases is directed towards the government in Tokyo, perceived as being insensitive to Okinawan needs and using Okinawa to house bases not desired elsewhere in Japan. Okinawa is the poorest prefecture within Japan, and the issue of U.S. bases has become tangled with the sense of colonialist, imperialist treatment of Okinawa by Tokyo. In 2011, it was reported that the military, contrary to repeated denials by the Pentagon, had kept tens of thousands of barrels of Agent Orange on the island. The Japanese and American governments have angered some U.S. veterans who believe they were poisoned by Agent Orange while serving on the island, by characterizing the statements regarding Agent Orange as dubious, and ignoring the requests for compensation. Reports that more than a third of the barrels developed leaks have led Okinawans to ask for environmental investigations. But as of 2012, both Tokyo and Washington refused such action. John Mitchell has reported concern that the U.S. used American Marines as chemical agent guinea pigs. A 2012 book, Resistant Islands, Okinawa Confronts Japan and the United States, argues that the U.S. presence on Okinawa, which has provoked strong opposition and resistance among the island's inhabitants, is not geared towards defending Japan, but rather to serve as part of an American forward deployment strategy aimed at Southeast Asia and China, the stability of which is not important to Japanese commercial or defense interests. 27,000 personnel, including 15,000 Marines, contingents from the Navy, Army, and Air Force, and the 22,000 family members are stationed in Okinawa. Marine Corps Air Station Futenma relocation, 2006. Present as of December 2014. One ongoing issue is the relocation of Marine Corps Air Station Futenma, first promised to be moved off the island and then later within the island. As of November 2014, the future of any relocation is uncertain, with the election of base opponent Onaga as Okinawa governor. Onaga won against the incumbent Nakayama, who had earlier approved landfill work to move the base to Camp Schwab in Henoko. However, Onaga has promised to veto the landfill work needed for the new base to be built and insisted Futenma should be moved outside of Okinawa. As of 2006, some 8,000 U.S. Marines were removed from the island and relocated to Guam. In November 2008, U.S. Pacific Command Commander Admiral Timothy Keating stated the move to Guam would probably not be completed before 2015. In 2009, Japan's former Foreign Minister Katsuya Okada stated that he wanted to review the deployment of U.S. troops in Japan to ease the burden on the people of Okinawa. 5,000 of 9,000 Marines will be deployed at Guam and the rest will be deployed at Hawaii and Australia. Japan will pay $3.1 billion cash for the moving and for developing joint training ranges on Guam and on Tinian and Pagan in the U.S.-controlled Northern Mariana Islands. As of 2014, the U.S. still maintains Air Force, Marine, Navy, and Army military installations on the islands. These bases include Kadena Air Base, Camp Foster, Marine Corps Air Station Futenma, Camp Hansen, Camp Schwab, Torii Station, Camp Kinsa, and Camp Gonsalves. The area of 14 U.S. bases are 233 square kilometers, occupying 18% of the main island. Okinawa hosts about two-thirds of the 50,000 American forces in Japan, although the islands account for less than 1% of total lands in Japan. Suburbs have grown towards and now surround two historic major bases, Futenma and Kadena. One-third of the land used by the U.S. military is the Marine Corps Northern Training Area in the north of the island. Helipads construction in Takare and Yanbaru. Since the early 2000s, Okinawans have opposed the presence of American troops' helipads in the Takare zone of the Yanbaru forest near Higashi and Kunigami. This opposition has increased particularly in July 2016 against the construction of 6 new helipads. Geography. Major islands. The islands comprising the prefecture are of the southern two-thirds of the archipelago of the Ryukyu Islands. Okinawa's inhabited islands are typically divided into 3 geographical archipelagos. From northeast to southwest, Okinawa Islands, i.e. Jima, Kumijima Okinawa Island, Karioma Islands, Miyako Islands, Miyako Jima, Yaeyama Islands, Iriomo Jima, Ishigaki Island, Yonaguni. Cities. 11 cities are located within the Okinawa Prefecture. Okinawa names are in parentheses, towns and villages. These are the towns and villages in each district. Town merges natural parks. As of March 31, 2008, 19% of the total land area of the prefecture was designated as natural parks, namely the Iriomote Ishigaki National Park, Okinawa Kaigan and Okinawa Senseki Quasi National Parks, and Irabu, Kumejima, and Tonaki Prefectural Natural Parks. Fauna. The dugong is an endangered marine mammal related to the manatee. Iriomote is home to one of the world's rarest and most endangered cat species, the Iriomote cat. The region is also home to at least one endemic pit viper, Trimresurus elegans. Coral reefs found in this region of Japan provide an environment for a diverse marine fauna. The sea turtles return yearly to the southern islands of Okinawa to lay their eggs. The summer months carry warnings to swimmers regarding venomous jellyfish and other dangerous sea creatures. Flora. Okinawa is a major producer of sugar cane, pineapple, papaya, and other tropical fruit, and the Southeast Botanical Gardens represent tropical plant species. Geology. The island is largely composed of coral, and rainwater filtering through that coral has given the island many caves, which played an important role in the Battle of Okinawa. Gyokusendo is an extensive limestone cave in the southern part of Okinawa's main island. Climate. The island experiences temperatures above 20 degrees Celsius for most of the year. The climate of the islands ranges from humid subtropical climate in the north, such as Okinawa Island, to tropical rainforest climate in the south, such as Iriomote Island. The islands of Okinawa are surrounded by some of the most abundant coral reefs found in the world. The world's largest colony of rare blue coral is found off of Ishigaki Island. Snowfall is unheard of at sea level. However, on January 24, 2016, sleet was reported in Argo on Okinawa Island for the first time on record. Demography. Language and culture. Having historically been a separate nation until 1879, Okinawan language and culture differ in many ways from that of mainland Japan. Language. There remain 6 Ryukyuan languages which are incomprehensible to Japanese speakers, although they are considered to make up the family of Japonic languages along with Japanese. These languages are in decline as Standard Japanese is being used by the younger generation. They are generally perceived as dialects by mainland Japanese and some Okinawans themselves. Standard Japanese is almost always used in formal situations. In informal situations, de facto everyday language among Okinawans under age 60 is Okinawa accented mainland Japanese, which is often misunderstood as Okinawan language proper. The actual traditional Okinawan language is still used in traditional cultural activities, such as folk music and folk dance. There is a radio news program in the language as well. Religion. Okinawans have traditionally followed Ryukyuan religious beliefs, generally characterized by ancestor worship and the respecting of relationships between the living, the dead, and the gods and spirits of the natural world. Cultural influences. Okinawan culture bears traces of its various trading partners. One can find Chinese, Thai and Austronesian influences in the island's customs. Perhaps Okinawa's most famous cultural export is karate, probably a product of the close ties with an influence of China on Okinawan culture. Karate is thought to be a synthesis of Chinese kung fu with traditional Okinawan martial arts. A ban on weapons in Okinawa for 2 long periods after the formal annexation of the islands and abolition of the kingdom in 1879 by Japan during the Meiji Restoration period also very likely contributed to its development. Okinawan's reputation as wily resistors of being influenced by conquerors is depicted in the 1956 Hollywood film, The Tea House of the August Moon, which takes place immediately after World War II. Another traditional Okinawan product that owes its existence to Okinawa's trading history is awamori, an Okinawan distilled spirit made from indica, rice imported from Thailand. Other cultural characteristics. Other prominent examples of Okinawan culture include the sanshin, a 3-stringed Okinawan instrument closely related to the Chinese sangxian, and ancestor of the Japanese shamisen, somewhat similar to a banjo. Its body is often bound with snake skin. Okinawan culture also features the asa dance, a traditional drumming dance, a traditional craft. The fabric named bingata is made in workshops on the main island and elsewhere. The Okinawan diet consists of low-fat, low-salt foods, such as whole fruits and vegetables, legumes, tofu, and seaweed. Okinawans are known for their longevity. This particular island is a so-called blue zone, an area where the people live longer than most others elsewhere in the world. 5 times as many Okinawans live to be 100 as in the rest of Japan, and Japanese are already the longest-lived ethnic group globally. As of 2002, there were 34.7 centenarians for every 100,000 inhabitants, which is the highest ratio worldwide. Possible explanations are diet, low-stress lifestyle, caring community, activity, and spirituality of the inhabitants of the island. A cultural feature of the Okinawans is the forming of moais. A moai is a community social gathering and groups that come together to provide financial and emotional support through emotional bonding, advice giving, and social funding. This provides a sense of security for the community members and, as mentioned in the Blue Zone studies, may be a contributing factor to the longevity of its people. In recent years, Okinawan literature has been appreciated outside of the Ryukyu archipelago. 2 Okinawan writers have received the Akutagawa Prize. Mata Yoshiaki in 1995 for The Pig's Retribution, and Medora Mishun in 1997 for A Drop of Water. The prize was also won by Okinawans in 1967 by Tatsuhiro Oshiro for Cocktail Party, and in 1971 by Minio Higashi for Okinawan Boy. Karate originated in Okinawa. Over time, it developed into several styles and sub-styles. On Okinawa, the 3 main styles are considered to be Shorin-yu, Goryu-yu, and Uchi-yu. Internationally, the various styles and sub-styles include Matsubayashi-yu, Wado-yu, Ishin-yu, Shotokan, Shitu-yu, Shorinji-yu, Kenkokan, Shorinji-yu, Koshingai, Shorinji-yu, and Shori-yu. Architecture. Despite widespread destruction during World War II, there are many remains of a unique type of castle, a fortress known as Gasukus, the most significant and now inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. In addition, 21 Ryukyuan architectural complexes and 36 historic sites have been designated for protection by the national government, whereas most homes in Japan are made from wood and allow free flow of air to combat humidity. Typical modern homes in Okinawa are made from concrete with barred windows to protect from flying plant debris and to withstand regular typhoons. Roofs are designed with strong winds in mind, where each tile is cemented on and not in merely layered as seen with many homes elsewhere in Japan. Many roofs also display a statue resembling a lion or dragon, called a shiza, which is said to protect the home from danger. Roofs are typically red in color and are inspired by Chinese design. Education. The public schools in Okinawa are overseen by the Okinawa Prefectural Board of Education. The agency directly operates several public high schools. The U.S. Department of Defense Dependence Schools operates 13 schools total in Okinawa. 7 of these schools are located on Kadena Air Base. Okinawa has many types of private schools. Some of them are cram schools, also known as Ryukyu. Others, such as Nova, solely teach language. People also attend small language schools. There are 10 colleges, universities in Okinawa, including the University of the Ryukyus, the only national university in the prefecture, and the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, a new international research institute. Okinawa's American military bases also host the Asian division of the University of Maryland University College. Sports. Association Football FC Ryukyu. Basketball Ryukyu Golden Kings. Handball Ryukyu Corazon. In addition, various baseball teams hold training during the winter in the prefecture, as it is the warmest prefecture of Japan with no snow and higher temperatures than other prefectures. SoftBank Hawks. Yokohama Bay Stars. Chunichi Dragons. Yakult Swallows. There are numerous golf courses in the prefecture, and there was formerly a professional tournament called the Okinawa Open. Transportation. Air transportation. Naguni Airport, Hateruma Airport, Iejima Airport, New Ishigaki Airport, Kariyama Airport, Kitadaito Airport, Kumejima Airport, Minami Daito Airport, Miyako Airport, Naha Airport, Shimojijima Airport, Tarama Airport, Yonaguni Airport. Highways. Okinawa Expressway, Naha Airport Expressway, Route 58, Route 329, Route 330, Route 331, Route 332, Route 390, Route 449, Route 505, Route 506, Route 507. Rail. Okinawa Monorail. Ports. The major ports of Okinawa include Naha Port, Port of Unten, Port of Kinwan, Nakagasukuwan Port, Harara Port, Port of Ishigaki,